And now, Schnell reads you the rulebook for
Magic the Gathering, Ravnica Clue Edition. Guildmage body lies slain in his manor. One of his 6 invited guests is responsible. As a detective with the Ravnican Agency of Magicological Investigations, you have been tasked with identifying the manner of his demise. Either crack the case before your rival sleuths, or end their investigations permanently. Objective: in Ravnica Clue Edition, players compete in a free-for-all multiplayer magic game with 2 paths to victory. Gather evidence when your creatures deal combat damage, then use those clues to guess the evidence cards in the case file envelope. If your guesses are correct, you win. Stumped? You can also win if you're the last sleuth standing. The game is designed for 3 to 4 players but works well with 2 players. The clue elements of this game can be used with your own magic decks in games of up to 5 players. Setup: 1. Open 2 Ravnica Clue Edition boosters and shuffle them together. This is your library for the game. Other players do the same. 2. Open the clue booster and separate the 21 evidence cards into 3 piles: suspects, weapons, and rooms, as indicated on the evidence notepad. Shuffle each pile and place it face down. Note: cards found in the clue boosters aren't meant to be used on the battlefield with those from the Ravnica Clue Edition boosters. You can play them in other magic decks if you wish, but in this game mode, they're intended only for use as evidence cards. 3. Place the top card from each of the 3 piles into the case file envelope face down so no player can see the evidence cards inside. Then reveal the top 2 cards of the room pile and set them aside. 4. Shuffle the remaining suspect, weapon, and room cards together and deal them out face down to each player. Keep these evidence cards separate from your library and hidden from other players. 5. Hand out a writing utensil and sheet from the evidence notepad to each player. Use these to record evidence during the game and narrow down what cards must be in the case file envelope. 6. Look at your evidence cards and the 2 revealed rooms and mark them on your sheet. Keep this information hidden. After all players do so, you're ready to play. Play. Ravnica Clue Edition is a multiplayer magic game with these additional rules. You and all other players start the game with 30 life. Whenever one or more creatures you control deal combat damage to a player, you must make a suggestion. Say, I suggest that the crime was committed by suspect with the weapon in the room. That player then secretly shows you one of the evidence cards from your suggestion, if they have one. If you have more than one card, they choose which to show you. If your creature or creatures deal combat damage to multiple players at the same time, and you make a suggestion, the player closest to your left that was dealt damage shows you an evidence card from your suggestion, if possible. If they can't, then the next player to the left that was dealt damage must attempt to show you a card, and so on, continuing clockwise around the table until a player shows you a card, or all players that were dealt damage have attempted to show one. At the beginning of your end step, if you haven't made a suggestion, you may exile cards with a total mana value 6 or greater from your graveyard to do so. If you do, follow the rules above as if you had dealt combat damage to each other player at the same time. Suggestion and evidence tips. If you don't know what evidence to include in your suggestion, you can find the names of all suspects, weapons, and rooms on your evidence notepad sheet. Mark any evidence cards you are shown on your own sheet. Some players find it helpful to mark the initials of the player who showed them the card. Use your hidden info screen to hide what you know from other players. Whenever you show an evidence card to another player, you create a treasure token. A treasure token is an artifact that you can tap and sacrifice to add 1 mana of any color. If you lose the game, reveal your evidence cards to all players. Think you know who done it? At the beginning of your end step, after any suggestions have been made, you can make an accusation to solve the murder. Say, I accuse suspect of murdering Guildmage body with the weapon in the room. Then check the case file envelope without letting other players see the evidence cards inside. You can only make 1 accusation per game, so be careful. If you named all 3 evidence cards inside the case file envelope correctly, reveal them. You win the game. If your accusation was wrong, put the cards back in the envelope and keep them hidden from the other players. You can't make suggestions or accusations for the rest of the game, but you still must respond to any from other players. Don't lose hope. Even though you can't solve the murder, you can still win the game by reducing the life totals of the other players to 0.
Okay, you should be all set. Thanks for listening.